The police database is filled with many unsolved and unfortunate crimes. Some of these crimes have been left unsolved for the time being, while most remain as open cases. Number 5. In 2001, Ali Gaffar Okan, a beloved police chief in Turkey, was mourned by many after he had been assassinated. The officer was seen as a hero and had devoted his life to assisting the people of Turkey, who had been the victims of terroristic activity for quite a few years. He stood against a campaign that had driven a wedge between the Turkish people and the Kurds, and for this, he was seen as one of the most heroic police officers. In January of 2001, a vehicle carrying the police chief had been traveling through Turkey's southeastern area in the main city, where assassins opened fire on the vehicle. There had been 5 fatalities as well as 4 more injuries of police officers. The Prime Minister stated that they were unsure who had initiated and carried out the attack on the officers. Authorities began to suspect a militant group called the Hezbollah, but they had not claimed responsibility for the horrific attack. It was found that the Hezbollah group had been threatening Okan, which is what led to them being the main suspects, but no evidence could be found of their direct involvement. After the assassination, the authorities arrested various suspects and believed that there were 4 individuals who had carried out this heinous act. They also believed that at least 2 of these assassins had been injured during the shootout, and one of them was seen fleeing the scene of the crime. The suspected group had also been tied and implicated in over 150 homicide cases. On the Thursday following the attack, many individuals had gathered in the city for a mass demonstration to show support for the government. The Turkish minister had thrown white carnations on the coffins, which had the Turkish flag draped over them. While the coffins were busy being carried out from the town square, some of the gathered mourners chanted phrases such as "the motherland will not be divided," as well as "martyrs never die." The case of Ali Gaffar Okan is one that needs to see its assailants apprehended to finally bring justice and closure. Number 4. Dragan Stojanovic was born in 1950 and became a boxer, a kickboxer, and a mixed martial arts fighter. He had the Guinness World Record for the highest amount of push-ups, which was 50 in 10 seconds. In 1993, he moved to Los Angeles and started a short film career. Amazingly, he had trained with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Magic Johnson. He wrote the screenplay for the first Serbian action movie called Born to be a Warrior. Once the MMA fighter had returned to Yugoslavia, he was dedicated to introducing a new kind of martial arts to the citizens of Yugoslavia, known as mixed martial arts. This is when newspapers had spread the rumors that he had a connection with Belgrade Underground. On the 18th of February in 2001, he'd been returning to his Audi A4 at the Partizan Stadium tennis courts on a Sunday when he was assassinated in broad daylight. He was inside of his car when one bullet found itself in his neck, while the rest of them had hit him in the chest, which had been fatal. There have been no suspects that have risen. No one is certain why he would have been targeted, and no possessions are believed to have been stolen either during the attack. A brief description was given to the offender, stating that it was a younger man who wore a black cap, sunglasses, and jeans. No arrests were made, and no tips came forward regarding any information of the MMA fighter's assassination. The beloved boxer left behind 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter. A tournament is also said to take place on a yearly basis, which has been named after Stojanovic. The assailant is yet to be apprehended for this act. Number 3. Bonnie Lee Backley was born in Morristown, New Jersey, where she grew up, having a troubling childhood. Backley later had a daughter named Holly, who stated in an interview that her mother was like her best friend, but Bonnie's actions would later turn criminal and lead her to being arrested and charged with fraud. She later went on to pursue a show business career where she became obsessed with various celebrities. In 1999, Bonnie and Robert Blake had found one another in a jazz club where they would later go on to get married and have a daughter named Rose. On the 4th of May, 2001, Robert and Bonnie had gone out for dinner at Vitello's in Los Angeles Studio City area. Robert had explained to the police that when the couple had returned to their vehicle, he'd remembered that he left a licensed firearm at the table where they'd been sitting for dinner. He went back to the restaurant to retrieve it, only to return to his wife and find that she'd been the victim of a shooting. This is when he had to run to a nearby door to ask for help. The resident had been Sean Stanek, who had phoned for an ambulance. The waiter who served the couple, however, stated that no firearm had been left at the table. 10 days later, a firearm was found in a trash can a block and a half away from where the incident had occurred. The bullets of the Walther pistol had matched the ones that had fatally wounded Bonnie. The serial number on the weapon was filed off, so the owner could not be identified. In 2002, Robert Blake was arrested on the assumption that it was him who had carried out the crime. He was later found not guilty. In the trial, 2 individuals stated that he had tried to hire them to do a hit on his wife, but the defense stated that this would not be credible to the lifestyle habits of the two. It was then stated that Robert had residue on his hands, but an expert testified, stating if he had fired the weapon, he would have had over 100 particles present on his hands, not just the 4 or 5 that were found. Robert would have faced life in prison if these facts had not been brought up in court. The jury foreman also explained to reporters that a connection of all the links could not be made in the chain that connected Robert to the crime, and so he walked. The next suspect had been an already convicted individual named Christian Brando, who had previously gone to prison on the account of ending the life of his sister's boyfriend in 1990. There was very little evidence that could be tied to Brando relating to the fatal shooting of Bonnie Lee Backley, and so her mystery has still not been solved. It's since been decades later, and her case remains unsolved, and closure has not been brought to the family, including her 4 children. Number 2. Thomas Crane Wales was born in 1952 and grew up in Southborough, Massachusetts. Thomas later became an assistant United States attorney in Seattle in 1983, and this is where he specialized mainly in fraud cases. He had also been active in public service as well as civic organizations. The individual was on the Mayor's Citizen Advisory Committee and had been part of the Seattle Planning Commission. Thomas's life suddenly came to an end on the 11th of October 2001 at around 10:40 p.m. The shooter had stood in the back garden of Thomas's house where he proceeded to fire at him through the basement window while he sat at his desk and toyed with his computer. A male individual was seen fleeing the area, and Thomas later passed away in the hospital due to the injuries he sustained. Some individuals have been listed as suspects by the FBI, and new evidence suggested that one of these suspects had been helped by a drug cartel to go through with this homicidal act. If the FBI can secure a link between the two, the case could be solved. Investigators have not been able to get around the given alibi, which states that the individual was miles away in Beaux Arts Village, close to Bellevue, while on a phone call at the time that Thomas had been fatally wounded. The FBI had searched his houses, brought friends as well as family before the grand jury, and even ran undercover operations in attempts to capture the person responsible. A $1.5 million reward has been put up, and investigators have tried to track the buyers of customized firearm barrels, which may be connected with the incident, but nothing has come of this as of yet. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has theorized that a possible prime suspect may have been an airline pilot, and a revenge hit was carried out on Wales. They suspect that this pilot had been one of the individuals prosecuted by Wales for fraud. The FBI is still investigating this possibility, but no certain leads have been presented, as the case of Thomas Kane Wales remains unsolved for the time being. Number 1. On the 10th of July in 2004, a 20-year-old woman named Amanda Fleetwood had her life taken from her only days before she was due to start a new job. She had hopes of teaching English in Japan and had a bright future ahead of her. She would need to finance this trip somehow and decided to get a job as a waitress, but she never made it to her first day. In the early morning hours of the 10th of July, Amanda and her friend Jonathan Trump had stopped to purchase cigarettes. Here, they had encountered a man who asked them for a ride home. They declined a few times but eventually gave in after the three had a conversation outside the store. Trump was the driver of the vehicle while Amanda sat next to him with the stranger in the back seat. He told them that this complex was half a mile away, and once they arrived there, he directed Trump to park in the driveway. Right before he exited the vehicle, he drew a firearm and fired at both of them. He rummaged through Trump's pocket and took his wallet. Although he had sustained serious injuries, he was able to reverse the vehicle and crash into a tree. While he survived, Amanda was not as lucky and unfortunately succumbed to her wounds 5 days later. The individual could be seen on the CCTV footage of the store, as well as Trump and Amanda. Only a few leads ever turned up. Authorities attempted to match DNA found on a juice box in Trump's car, belonging to the offender, but to no avail. He's described as clean-shaven, African-American, and a male in his 20s. He has a stocky build weighing about 175 pounds and stands at 5 foot 9 inches tall. Should anyone come across any new information regarding this case, they should send their tips to the Houston Crime Stoppers at 713-222-TIPS. Although it's been a number of years since the incident, we can only hope that this unsolved crime eventually gets justice seen for the individual. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.